Just 2 more races to go in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Welcome to Hockenheim. Round 32. The series already won by Felix Rosenqvist, but second place is still up for grabs between Felix Rosenqvist, Charles Leclerc and Jake Dennis. And of the 3, Jake was the best placed in the earlier race that we had today. Won for the first time by the 16-year-old Lance Stroll, who put aside his mid-season reputation for being involved in incidents and came through for a very impressive maiden victory. Felix Rosenqvist helped to play the team game, slotted in behind Jake Dennis. So Jake got second place, and that brings him even closer within the championship now to Charles Leclerc. There's just 11.5 points between the two, and he's closing as well on Antonio Giovinazzi, whom he outscored in the earlier race. David Anderson and Dave Richardson at a rather cold and chilly Hockenheim. Temperatures haven't exactly risen much all through the course of the weekend, but what we had on track is some very lively racing, and Lance Stroll's efforts, Dave, let's talk about this first of all in race 1. Very impressive indeed.
Didn't put a wheel wrong, did he?
No.
Let's be truthful. Absolutely fine display, and never ever looked threatened. I don't know, Jake Dennis just couldn't get on terms. Antonio Giovinazzi starting this race on pole position obviously puts himself into a better position, but if anything, the temperature will have dropped a little bit. Interestingly, the Lance Stroll will be going from P8, the victor from earlier on, who Giovinazzi has alongside him is Jake Dennis, as you can see there, for the Prema Power team, and Felix Rosenqvist will be going from P3. So once again, Jake Dennis, if Felix Rosenqvist is going to play the team game, is going to have him as a bit of a buffer, isn't he?
That's right.
And the returning Alexander Sims going from P4.
Now Alexander is in the guest class, so he doesn't score points. There is Felix Rosenqvist, the champion already. 12 times a race winner, and quite content this weekend. Yes, he'd like to win more races, but if he needs to assist his teammates, then he will do so, because he's conscious of what Prema Power team has done for him this year, and therefore playing that team game going into these last couple of races of the season. It's rare in Formula 3, given that normally it's every man for himself, that you'll ever find the team orders aspect to it. But Felix Rosenqvist then lines up third on the grid. Alexander Sims for High Tech, a team with a fine pedigree. David Hale's team is there, fourth on the grid, and Alexander ready to go. Before the first race, he had a spin coming up to the grid, but got that out of his system and raced strongly thereafter. And Alexander Sims, certainly a man to watch there. For fifth on the grid is Maximilian Günther in different colours. He has forsaken Muka Motorsport, with whom he won at Norris Ring, to go to Prema, and qualified well for the first race. Bogged down a bit off the start, came through in the end to finish in fourth place, but Günther will be a man to watch. And Alex Albon, we keep saying it, he's knocking on the door of his maiden win. The British Thai driver, dual nationality, he is sixth. And Alex Albon, who's graduated from Formula Renault Euro Cup into Formula 3 this year, has learnt and progressed and chipped away with the signature team. And in the Lotus F1 colours, another driver to watch for. Seventh is Mikkel Jensen, who got a penalty in the first race for slightly jumping the start. He also had a big, wide moment coming through the parabolica, got all sideways over the grass. It was a good save.
Yes, it was.
And now he starts on the fourth row of the grid with Lance Stroll for company. Mikkel Jensen now really upholding Muka Motorsport's honour. There's very sparse entry, really, from Muka. The normal splash of orange has gone because Günther has switched teams. There's no Kang Ling this weekend, so there's a couple of cars missing. Lance Stroll lining up for this race, 8th on the grid, the most recent winner from earlier on in the day, part of the Ferrari Young Driver programme, the first Canadian to win in the European F3 Championship in its current incarnation. There is Marcus Pommer for the Motorpark team, Timo Rumpel's team that's new to the series this year. Marcus Pommer and that win at Zandvoort back in July. And then the top 10 is rounded out by George Russell, who had his only victory at Silverstone back in April when the cars were on the full Grand Prix circuit supporting the WEC round there. George Russell, the East Anglian, drives for Trevor Carlin's team, and the winner of last year's BRDC F4 Championship in the UK. Thumbs up from the Brit. He is ready to go. 22 laps or 35 minutes, depending on which comes first. Sergio Sette Camara there had an off at the first corner of the first race, got back up to 17th in his Motopark Dallara. It runs with one of the Volkswagen power units, as does the car alongside that of Charles Leclerc. So Leclerc a long way back, and don't forget he's third in the championship, so the Van Amersfoort racing driver has got work to do here. He starts out of the points and he dropped places during the first race, so you get the feeling that come the end of the weekend, Jake Dennis will be at least third, if not better, in the championship.
I think you might be right there, and he was I mean, Charles never looked like he had it in him during the first race earlier today. You know, various overtaking moves that went on. You know,
they were happening around him.
Yeah.
Or to him.
Yes. Never seemed really to be where we perhaps would expect him to be. The point I was going to make and go on to is that obviously fierce competition between the drivers to get that P2, 3 and 4 in the championship, but as is always the case, fierce competition between the teams as well, isn't there, David? Because, you know, you've got the likes of Prema Power Team and Carlin and Van Amersfoort and Moto Park, etc., all here, all running, with the exception of one team, the same chassis.
Because you have the architects of the Artline engineering team, the new Russian-built cars towards the back of the grid, one for Harold Schlegelmilch, returning to F3, in which he raced about a decade ago, and the other for Marvin Dienst, who is the winner of this year's ADAC F4 championship in this country. He won that here 2 weeks ago, in fact. For the Racing Steps Foundation, Jake Dennis, Mercedes Power this year, and a new team as well, because he went from Carlin and Volkswagen to Mercedes and Prema Power Team. And have a quick run down the grid. Felix Rosenqvist there, number 1, the new champion. Alexander Sims for High-Tech next. And so the field ready to go. There's one withdrawal for this race, Raoul Hyman from Westtech, who had an incident in the first race. He's withdrawn, so disappointing, because Raoul Hyman has looked good on occasions despite his lack of experience. But Giovinazzi will feel some pressure in this. He was a little bit undercooked in race 1 of the day. He got 6th. He starts on pole position. It's got to be a race win to keep him on track to be the championship runner-up, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, really. And having looked at him earlier today, not absolutely convinced he's going to be able to fend off all those behind him. But we will see. Just going back to our P2 driver, Jake Dennis, who, of course, as you rightly said, changed teams this year. And I would have said it was probably the right move for Jake. He's looked better with Prema.
He has. I mean, there's the experience gained from last year when he was getting rookie podiums, but now it's overall podiums and 6 race wins. So there is that aspect of gaining the experience and learning about it. But yes, I mean, certainly the results this year are better than last, no argument about it. This is how the grid lines up. Giovinazzi, Dennis, Rosenqvist, Sims, Gunther, Albon, Jensen, Stroll, Pommer and Russell we looked at on the grid itself. 11th is where you find Camara, ahead of Charles Leclerc and Arjun Maini. Callum Islet, 14th, one to watch. He was 15th in race 1 from 30th. Alessio Lorandi is behind him. Then it's Ferrucci, Boccolacci, Menezes, Tfita, Fittipaldi. Tatiana Calderon is 21st, and the rest of the grid scrolls through, completed by the architects of Schlegelmilch and Marvin Dienst at the very back.
A big step up for Marvin Dienst, isn't it, to come from you know, the success in Formula 4 to make his debut, if you like, in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship with a new team and a new car. But
in a way, it's useful because nothing's expected. You know, if it were in a Dallara with Prema, there'd be a real spotlight on him. But it's a new team with a new chassis that's still being developed. Nobody's expecting it to win. Nobody's expecting a podium result. But for Marvin Dienst, therefore, to learn a little bit about the downforce and the extra speed and the tyre that's involved in a Formula 3 car will all be useful. And Harold Schlegelmilch, as his teammate, has been racing in Lamborghinis this year, an experienced driver, so he's bringing data back as well.
Really, a decade ago, he was in this.
That's right, yeah.
Wow.
In the days where you had, I mean, it was in those days the F3 Euro Series, going back to when you had people like Peter Elkman running in it, which would have been about 04, 05, that era, 06, conceivably stretching it up. But I think he did 2 or 3 years in the championship, Harold Schlegelmilch. But he's come back, and that is useful to have him as a development driver. He's been off and done some rallying in the meantime as well, but is still competitive within the Lamborghini Blancpain Super Trofeo this year. So it's 22 laps or 35 minutes, depending on whether we get safety cars or not. And Antonio Giovinazzi then slots into place on pole position. Jake Dennis with him at the front of the grid, and Carlin versus Prema, Italian versus Brit. The two of them fighting over second place in the championship, and with Charles Leclerc starting 12th out of the points.
Yes.
He is, if you like, a separate story in this. You've got one fight, which is Giovinazzi relative to Dennis, but where Leclerc will come and finish is going to have a huge impact on Jake Dennis's championship, and Leclerc will be the focus of attention, because if he's not making progress, you can almost strike him off that list. He comes into this race with 11.5 points of an advantage over Jake Dennis. If Jake were to win or finish second, for example, or even third, and Leclerc be out of the points, then he loses the place in the championship. So it's important that he makes progress. It's important that Jake Dennis keeps out of trouble. The same is true for the poleman Giovinazzi. 5 red lights will go on. The penultimate round of the championship is go. A good start made by Rosenqvist. Giovinazzi moves across to defend there from Jake Dennis on the run down towards turn 1. Dennis keeps on coming. He's going to go for the race lead. Giovinazzi gets forced out wide, but Jake Dennis will have the inside line for the next corner. But Giovinazzi, by running so wide, maintained the momentum, carried the speed, and he leads up towards turn 2. So Jake Dennis now is going to try and get a run through the Parabolica to the Spitzkehrer. 1 or 2 run wide, including Santino Ferrucci. Dorian Boccolacci also wide, and he may just have got his nose glanced there as he got back onto the circuit. Nabil Jeffrey gets involved and runs somebody out wide, but as the cars work their way up now towards the Spitzkehrer for the first time, Jake Dennis has his nose in front for the race lead. The red, white and blue car of the Brit on the outside. Giovinazzi attacks on the inside. Dennis loses out, but he needs to get the undercut and get alongside on the run to 7, which he can't do. He slots into the draft. Now he pulls out. Now he makes the move on the run down towards turn 7. Arjun was wide in the background, but Giovinazzi will lead midway around lap 1, but he has got Dennis all over him like a cheap suit.
So Giovinazzi then and Jake Dennis fighting really, really hard right at the front of the pack as the rest of the cars all come through. Alexander Albon is another one that is on a charge, also one to keep an eye on perhaps, but Giovinazzi is leading from Jake Dennis.
Sims up the inside of Gunter. Callum Eilert trying to defend from Arjun. Sims is wide, he's over the curb, he's into the gravel, he's back onto the road, but he's going to get scruffy tyres as a result of that. So Lance Stroll goes past him. Alexander Sims then drops it and drops a place. Leaders work their way up towards the Sudkurve for the first time, the last right on the lap, and then towards the timing line. Giovinazzi was leading, and look at the gap he's pulled over the last 3 or 4 corners, because he comes over the line with an advantage which is 9/10 of a second. Rosenqvist is third, Gunter is fourth, but again wide and even wider at turn 1, and Albon is off the road and he's in the barriers, and that'll bring out the safety car, I fear, to get the car out of the way. Everybody was running wide. You measure your speed against the guy ahead. Albon got it wrong, he went wide, tyres still cool, couldn't catch it back again, and so the yellows are out at turn 1. But for that car to be moved, I fear the race will have to be interrupted, and that's going to reduce Giovinazzi's advantage. Dennis closing anyway. The safety car could well be on standby, and we've still got battles going on in the background. Look, because behind Sims, you've got Mikkel Jensen here trying to make a move. Jensen in the orange car up the inside, and he's gone through ahead of Stroll, and Kamara gets into the mix as well. Now, how's Charles Leclerc doing? He's on the outside line. Safety car is indeed deployed as predicted. Safety car is on track. We did have a pit visitor, Matt Rao, at the end of lap 1, but Alex Albon off the road. Time for a deep breath. Alex Albon is okay, but frustration because he's going no further in the race.
And I feel awful because there was me saying he was on a real charge, and you know, the way you described it there, you just measure your speed up against those who are ahead of you, and I'd like to see a replay of it and to see how he got into that situation and whether it was just overcooked.
So safety car on track. The reason for this is that if you have marshals working trackside as they need to, that has to be covered by a double waved yellow flag. The FIA says that's not enough these days after Jules Bianchi's accident of last year. It's got to be a safety car, and there you see he hooks a wheel up onto the curb, loses traction, and there's a huge amount of speed being carried into the corner. He almost saved it, but as the front straightened out, then it was across the gravel and into the barriers. So Alex Albon is out, and that has just given Charles Leclerc, incidentally, 10th place and a point.
Yes.
Whether he will stay there remains to be seen, but Alex Albon, okay, but hugely frustrated with himself, I would imagine, for that.
So it was just one of those rear wheels hooked up on the grass, and that was enough, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm okay, says Alex. Leave me alone. I'm really cross with myself. I'm okay. But the DMSB extraction team making sure he's okay, getting him out of the way of the car and the clean-up operation. So it shouldn't take long to get the race back underway. Now, why is Santino Ferrucci pitted? It looks like he's got damage to the nose. Now, was that the car it was that ran wide at turn 2 on the first lap, wasn't it? So perhaps as he's clattered over the curb, he's done some damage. And you might as well make the pit stop now while you're under neutralisation like this. Matt Rao got back into the race after his stop. So we started 32 this time. We've got 31 more or less in the race, with one of them in the pit lane. So the safety car will be in this lap, so Ferrucci needs to be back on track, but I fear he's going to have to be held now until the crocodile's gone through, and he will lose that lap. Replay of the start. Giovinazzi, a good job done, moves across, but Jake Dennis kept on coming, didn't he? He had the inside line. Giovinazzi runs wide but maintains the momentum.
Carried the speed, didn't he? Carried the speed. And
yeah.
You've made the point, because turn 1 is tight there, that, you know, track limits is never an issue on lap 1 because of all the cars going through.
There's a part of me that feels that
I
it's
think
acceptable.
Giovinazzi got an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, it's acceptable to run wide if you are squeezed, but others just, I think, go too quickly and use that run off because it's there. You know, they're not in a dangerous position. They just exploit it. But the race director can make a call on that if he so chooses. That's Ferrucci getting it wrong up at the Spitzkehrer. So we're about to go racing once more because the safety car is in the pit lane. The green flag is ready. No, safety car is not going to be in this lap. It's going to carry on. So we had the message it will be in this time, but it's doing one more lap, in fact. One more lap behind the safety car. Santino Ferrucci. Again. He did, I think, just get back on track, which might be another reason why the safety car has stayed out, just to let him catch up a little bit. Otherwise, you'd have the cars released catching up to him.
Yeah.
So we'll see how the race officials treat this, but the race still under the safety car, just while the order is restored, really. Alex, yeah, safety car is in this lap. We get the message again, so...
that was probably the reason behind that, wasn't it?
Yeah. And Ferrucci, I think I'm right in saying, has just gone over the line. Yes, he has, and he did absolute best in sectors on that lap as he tries to play catch-up. So he's not quite going to be on the back of the train, but he won't be far behind. So
Sure.
Well, the other way, race cars catching somebody still under safety car conditions, it will create a real mess. So an extra lap given. Now, under investigation for a jump start is Matt Rao. It is flippant to say little good did it do him because he had to pit anyway, but he's down in 30th place. But Matt Rao in the Fortec car is being investigated for jumping the start. And we're about to go back racing on this lap number 4 out of the 22 as the cars wriggle their way out of the Mercedes arena. And they will head now up towards the old, traditional, iconic part of the Hockenheim ring, which is the stadium. And Giovinazzi slows the pace to a crawl. You can fall back more than 10 lengths from... But you can't go and slow, you've got to keep accelerating.
Well, isn't it? Giovinazzi done
Now Charles Leclerc getting wide, and they go. Everybody will now suffer continues. I have a horrible suspicion. On. There's the contact. Tatiana Calderon gets turned around. Julio Moreno escapes. There's enough. Damn yellow flags are being shown then out on. Quickly removed. Of course. And goes Tatiana Calderon. How much damage? Through. And it was just a racing incident, really. And there's not much of a penalty in that race you can give to Jeffrey because he's going. The safety car is indeed deployed. Jensen and Stroll running wide at turn 1 and bits of bodywork going flying. So our second safety car period of the race, and it's for that, to get Nabil Jeffrey's car out of the way.
You do sometimes say safety car breed safety cars.
I have heard it said.
Yes.
And
sure enough, within the space of just a few moments of one, we get another.
Right, so now we've got another safety car, which means they'll
all bunch up. And
thank you.
Giovinazzi, having given us a masterclass really in how to restart following a safety car period, is going to have to do it all over again. And just wonder whether Jake Dennis will be wise to it this time around, and will try and anticipate when Giovinazzi is going to give it a footfall this time, perhaps better than he did last.
May well do. May well do. I mean, Giovinazzi is clever. He'll go at a different point because
yes.
Jake Dennis knows what he did last time. So Giovinazzi might say, do it there, midway through the Sachs curve. But what you don't want to do is accelerate away at somewhere that you might lose traction or can't become unsettled and have an off. So he'll be thinking about where best to do it. Also, of course, this second safety car period starts to really now affect the number of racing laps we're going to get. 35 minutes is the duration, but an extra safety car period, and it shouldn't be a long one, I wouldn't have thought.
No, the car was fairly easily retrievable from there, wasn't it?
So there is the Mercedes safety car, which will have a Volkswagen Dallara behind it, namely the race-leading car from Trevor Carlin's team. The Calderon Jeffrey accident goes to the stewards for them to have a look at. And the field turning its way now through the right-hander up at turn 2. So again, everyone weaving around to try and keep up the tyre pressures and the temperature in the tyres as well. Marshall's hard at work to attach the rope to the roll bar and then just lift Nabil Jeffrey's car out of the way. So he is another of the motor park drivers, but he's also out of the race. So we're down to 23 minutes now. We're on lap 7. So the cars turn their way out of the Spitzkehrer. Recovery operation nearly done, but I fear there's going to have to be one more lap.
Yes, because what we see is the recovery ongoing. The recovery vehicle then has to be put back into its station, doesn't it?
That's right, and the marshals need to get back on post, and. So, yeah, one more lap, I think, to be on the safe side. Now Sergio Sette Camara getting on. He's in 8th place. The Brazilian driver going strongly for Motor Park. Working his way then up through the Mercedes tribune, once more down towards the stadium. There is Camara. So safety car on track for the second time because of Nabil Jeffrey's car having to be removed, but the job just about done. So as that is moved out of harm's way, one more lap we suggest behind the safety car.
Well, yes, they're into the final turn now, so inevitably that's going to stay out for another lap, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's no reason for an extra one on top of that.
No, I agree.
So this will be the end of lap number 7 as the cars trip the beam. So Antonio Giovinazzi it is who leads the way, the man that comes here with 5 wins to his name, 7 in total, because he had a couple last year in the championship and of course raced in British Formula 3 the year before that. And in second place Jake Dennis, third is Felix Rosenqvist, just to run through the order. 4th Max Günther, Alexander Sims is 5th, 6th Mikael Jensen, 7th is Lance Stroll, 8th is Sergio Sette Camara, 9th is George Russell, 10th is Marcus Pommer. So Charles Leclerc, who was briefly 9th before we got the second safety car period, has fallen back into 11th spot. Out of the points.
Out of the points. Safety car will be in this lap, David.
Thanks. So Leclerc needs to get on with it. He's in 11th spot. 12th is Alessio Lorandi. 13th now Callum Eilert. 14th is Arjun Maini. 15th is Gustavo Menezes. 16th is Ryan Tvita. 17th Pietro Fittipaldi. Julio Moreno is 18th. 19th is Dorian Boccolacci, and Andy Chang is 21st. Just ahead of Taner Satiren Tirakul, who is making his debut in the championship this weekend, the Thai driver, in for Mahuvir Raghunathan. And then behind him you've got Matt Solomon, 22nd, 23rd Harold Schlegelmilch, 24th Marvin Deans, 25th is Nicholas Pola, 26th after a pit stop Santino Ferrucci, 27th Michele Beretta, 28th after a pit stop Matt Rao, in 29th place Peter Lee, and 30th Tatiana Calderon, both of whom have been in the wars a little bit. Right, everybody is bunched up. We are about to go racing once more on this, the end of lap number 8.
So Antonio Giovinazzi then, who gave us a masterclass last time round in how to restart following a safety car, has got to do it all over again, as David has suggested that he would be wise to floor it from a different position, because of course Jake Dennis will be trying to anticipate when Antonio Giovinazzi is going to give it some. And give it some he does right now. Well, I think that was probably not quite as good as the first one, but still certainly not bad, because Jake Dennis, Felix Rosenqvist, Maximilian Günther, Alexander Sims all following now, and they'll head round the final turn and across the timing beam. And Giovinazzi then with, well, he was 1/10 worse off than last time around.
So pretty consistent.
Yes.
Jake Dennis trying to go with him. As there, Camara runs wide. Sergio Seti Camara, Alessio Lorandi is wide and sideways. Rantvita runs wide and off the road as well. Meantime, up at turn 2, it almost looks as though Dennis is coming under more attack from Rosenqvist, and Dennis is able to attack the leader, Antonio Giovinazzi. Matt Rao has just been given a drive-through for a jump start, unfortunately, to add to his problems of a pit stop. He's down in 28th place. Now Rosenqvist on Dennis for second position. Felix Rosenqvist has got the line going up towards the Spitzkehrer, and through he goes. Up the inside, gains the place. And there, look behind them, Günther trying to fend off Alexander Sims.
Sims now, if he can get the traction and get right alongside, and I think he's going to do it.
He's got the inside line. Has he got his nose in front? Not yet, but he should have now on the shorter line. Runs Max Günther up towards the curb, but Günther fights back on the inside now into turn 8. Through he goes. Günther gets the place back, and Mikkel Jensen in the orange Muka car right there behind. He's looking for a way past Sims, as here are the top 3 with Rosenqvist then now up past Jake Dennis. Perhaps again feeling I'm quicker. I could have a go at the leader here. If Rosenqvist were to win, he's taking points off Giovinazzi. He might even, if he could get ahead, stack him up and let Jake Dennis have a go at him.
Yeah.
There are alternative ways of skinning cats, aren't there?
Yes. George Russell there on the Seti Camara car. George Russell running in P9. There is Seti Camara then running in P8.
Rosenqvist has just done the best lap of the race. He's half a second quicker than Giovinazzi in terms of a lap time, and so he's got the gap down to 0.6 of a second. So he's passed Jake Dennis, and he's brought the gap down to less than it was when Dennis were in second place a lap ago. Rosenqvist is on a mission here. Can he get himself into the lead, and then can he perhaps delay Giovinazzi a little bit? It's more of a touring car tactic than a single-seater tactic, you could argue, but Rosenqvist clearly has a quick car under him, and he's going to see if he can use that to in any way help Jake Dennis.
And so, I think from race 1 that we would say that Felix Rosenqvist is prepared to play the team game, isn't he? And, well, time will tell whether that is what his intentions are, but he is certainly on the back of Antonio Giovinazzi now, isn't he? Look at that. Certainly got a quick car all over the back of Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi really having to defend. Felix Rosenqvist locks up. Isn't quite able to get on the inside line.
But Giovinazzi, by defending, is going slower, and he's looking a bit scrappy, so it's almost 3 for the lead now. The gap that Jake Dennis couldn't quite make up before is virtually gone, because the 3 of them are together. So Giovinazzi now is under pressure. He's under attack. You've seen one little mistake be made. Can Rosenqvist get by? Well, this was up at the Spitzkehrer, and that was another mistake by Giovinazzi. That would have done that front right a power of no good. That's how Rosenqvist was able to get up alongside. But Giovinazzi fought back bravely on the run down towards turn 7 and got himself back in front. So this now has the makings of being a very good fight between them, with Jake Dennis there in the mix as well. They've gone over the timing line. The gap between Giovinazzi and Rosenqvist is still 0.6 of a second, and that half a second back is Jake Dennis. So Rosenqvist not quite close enough to attack at turn 2, but if he gets a good run through this corner, and he does, look, gets a tighter line into turn 2, now he can benefit from a toe on the run up towards the Spitzkehrer. Then we'll see whether the move can be made up the inside. Leclerc, in the meantime, is 11th. Callum Isle at 12 on the back of him. Not finding it quite so easy to get through the traffic this time, but further up the road, what's going to go on between the race leaders? Rosenqvist is close, and they're dropping Jake Dennis in a straight line. Rosenqvist to the inside, thinks about it. Tries to unsettle Giovinazzi, who repels the advance and still leads.
Giovinazzi not making the mistake that he made last time around that hairpin, so for the moment Giovinazzi still stays ahead.
Islet wide and back on again in the background. Sergio Seti Camara is under attack from George Russell. This is for 8th place. Russell in the blue car, Camara in the white and blue Motor Park colours. George Russell tries to go for the cut back, but then he's on the outside line for the next sequence, so that doesn't really pay off for him. They work their way down again towards the stadium. Alessio Lorandi wide in the background as Callum Eilert secures his 12th place. But the race leaders are working their way once more up towards the Sudkurve. And as they do so, Giovinazzi still is the man in charge.
Yes.
Menezes through, number 4, Gustavo Menezes there, Rd11 and another of the Jaconia I Am Carlin cars, but the trailblazer for the squad is there. Giovinazzi leading the race by half a second, so Rosenqvist is closer.
Yes, he's still within fighting distance, isn't he? This battle between Sergio Sette Camara and George Russell continues. George Russell having just fallen back a little bit. The battle for P8 and P9 that we were watching just moments ago. 5/10 the gap between Giovinazzi and Rosenqvist right at the front of the pack. And here in replay then, Antonio Giovinazzi, super slow-mo there.
Just to recap Charles Leclerc's situation, he's in 11th place. Alexander Sims is a guest and doesn't score points. So he'll get 1 point. So that would give Leclerc 363.5 going into tomorrow's race. If Jake Dennis finishes 3rd, he's on 366. So there'll be a change for 3rd at least going into tomorrow's race. If Giovinazzi wins, he would get 397.5. Take 366 off that. That would give you 31 points. Jake Dennis would not be enough. There wouldn't be enough available for him to get second. So if things stay as they are, Giovinazzi's going to be the runner-up in the championship, provisionally. My maths making sense? Yeah, I think they are.
Yes.
So Giovinazzi, by repelling the challenge of Jake Dennis for the moment, is looking good. Now, if Jake Dennis got himself back up into 2nd place, that might help a little bit. But Felix Rosenqvist equally could take some points off Giovinazzi by getting ahead of him. But that initial idea doesn't look like it's going to work out quite so well, does it?
Just looking at Ryan Tvita's car there, just sure whether he'd got an unstable front wing, or whether it was just the end plate that was flapping on the number 26 car. We'll keep an eye on that. George Russell then running in P9. There is George Russell, who's just beginning to turn the wick up once again on Sergio Sette Camara ahead in P8. George Russell then took a win at Silverstone right at the very, very start of what has been a long and arduous championship in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Around the Parabolica they go, and Rosenqvist really closing in to the back of Antonio Giovinazzi, and they're both again leaving Jake Dennis away and gapping Jake Dennis, and equally Maximilian Günther is not able to get onto the back of Jake Dennis either. So of course, once they start fighting hard between Giovinazzi and Rosenqvist, as we saw last time around, as George Russell does go for a move on Sergio Sette Camara. If he can stay absolutely committed to this, but is out wide, and Sette Camara will have the advantage there. So that ambitious and bold move from George Russell didn't pay off, and what that's doing is actually allowing Marcus Pommer to get onto the back of George Russell as well. So George Russell is in that an envious position, really, of being right in the middle there, hunting and being hunted at the same time.
Yeah, trying to attack and defend simultaneously, isn't he? Just looking at the maths, Antonio Giovinazzi, if he wins, and even if Jake Dennis were to come 2nd, the gap will be too great going into tomorrow's race. However, if Giovinazzi was 2nd and Jake Dennis 3rd, Giovinazzi would need only half a point to finish runner-up. So that does at least push it to tomorrow's race, and you never know what could happen. So in a sense, it's important now that Rosenqvist tries yet harder and gets himself up ahead of Giovinazzi, and then might even stack him back into a battle with Jake Dennis. But for as long as Giovinazzi is on target for a race win, because there's the 7-point margin between the points for the win and the points for 2nd, that's all important for his outcome. And at the moment, despite the pressure, he's doing a good job of keeping Rosenqvist at bay.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And what have we got? We've got 11 minutes on the clock.
And we're on lap 14.
It's going to go to time, isn't it?
I would say so. It's going to be close, but yeah. But what can Rosenqvist do? He's got himself with a quick car up past his teammate, but look, Jake Dennis again just dropping back.
Yes, yes, and I mentioned this just a lap or two ago, as Giovinazzi and Rosenqvist are seemingly getting up the road, aren't they, and leaving Jake Dennis in their wake, and Jake is just hasn't got the pace, has he?
No, I mean, part of it is Giovinazzi and Rosenqvist are both trading absolute best in sectors now.
Okay.
And so Giovinazzi knows that with Rosenqvist behind, he's got to push even harder, and he is doing, but Jake Dennis is not being able, it seems, to push quite so hard. That said, he has just taken 3/10 out in the middle sector, so this rather elasticated situation for the top 3 places continues. 7/10 now, 1 and 2, it's gone up, and then 1.2 seconds back, second to third. But Jake Dennis is now effectively 1.9 seconds off the race leader. That's a lot to make up, even with a bit of help.
Yeah.
So the race leaders were at lap 15. We're into the last 10 minutes of the race. There is Sergio Sette Camara still keeping George Russell at bay, 8th and 9th. Charles Leclerc running 11th, but he'll get a point. But I think that he's going to end up staring at 4th in the championship by the end of the year, because although Jake Dennis is not sparkling in the same way that Rosenqvist has, who then gets it wrong look going into the Spitzkehrer, a little mistake, Jake Dennis certainly has got better pace than Leclerc. Down they come to turn 7, and Antonio Giovinazzi upping his pace, keeping Rosenqvist at bay, and it makes one wonder, if he can do it now, why could he not do it on other occasions? Portimao, for example, he looked a bit anonymous. There have been other races this year where Giovinazzi just has not sparkled in the way that he needed to. And yet here he's going great guns.
Yes, absolutely, and doing a great job with, you know, the champion right behind him, but able to hold him at bay. George Russell turning the wick up once again to have potentially another attack on Sergio Sette Camara. All the time, of course, being ever conscious of the fact that Marcus Pommer lurks not far behind, and the minute these two start warring between them, that allows Pommer to get ever closer.
So the race leader has just gone over the timing line to start lap 16. He has done, Giovinazzi, the best lap of the race. Now the gap has widened to 9/10, and it looks as though, despite the efforts of Prema Power Team, Giovinazzi is going to be secured as the runner-up in the championship, doesn't it?
Certainly looks that way. So Sette Camara and Russell run over the curbs. Here's George Russell just taking a sneaky look at the inside. Wasn't close enough to be able to do anything really, but just trying to unsettle Sette Camara ahead of him. So again, I think that probably George Russell has got the pace, but he's got to find a way past the number 23 car, which he's not been able to do thus far. Is he going to try and have a go into the hairpin now, making the way around the parabolica again? I'm not sure he's absolutely close enough to be able to do so. Heavy braking between the two of them. Will try and get the undercut there, but Sette Camara just runs him out a little bit wide, and that was, you know, good racing to be fair. Yeah,
he knew what the peril was of his line, but he's able to use his pace to good effect, keep George Russell at bay. George to the outside then. This is what he wants to do and get the undercut. Has he got the drive? Yes. Has he got the pace? Yes. Has he got the place? Almost. He's on the outside line and he's forced even wider. Marcus Pommer tries to get on the mix, but George Russell keeps his foot in. Eventually he has to slot back in behind Camara. And this old part of the circuit a bit narrower, so overtaking not quite as easy, but he's certainly giving a huge amount of pressure to Sergio Sette Camara up the road ahead.
Valiant effort from George Russell, isn't it? But,
no question.
You know, again, as we both said, that, you know, the minute these two start fighting between each other, that just allows Marcus Pommer to get back in. And now Russell and Pommer are closer than Sette Camara and Russell.
So they turn their way through the right-left sequence of turn 2, the Einfahrt to the parabolica, out of which here comes the leader, which is Antonio Giovinazzi. Another 10th pulled over Rosenqvist in the first sector of the lap. He's got the best lap of the race anyway, and so now it looks as though Giovinazzi has done enough to build the advantage, but we've got 6.5 minutes to go, and we're on lap 17 of 22. It's going to go to time. Down towards the Mercedes Tribune they come, but what's going on for Jake Dennis? Because although he's tried hard, there's just something ebbing away a little bit, and here, in this race at least, after a Prema Power Team 1, 2, 3, 4 earlier on in the day, Carlin's hit the sweet spot, because the Carlin-Giovinazzi combination rules the roost. So you've got Carlin ahead of Prema, High 5th, Prema 7th, Motor Park 8th, Carlin 9th, Motor Park 10th. Reals mixture of the teams, and Van Amersfoort's best, Charles Leclerc, only 11th.
Yes. Now, even though Charles Leclerc is P11 at the moment, as you've made the point, he will still get a point because Alexander Sims, who's currently running in P5, is a guest and he's not point scoring therefore.
That's right. So Leclerc will be a notional 10th. Over the timing line goes Giovinazzi, and Jake Dennis up ahead of Felix Rosenqvist. So the place given back potentially, and Felix Rosenqvist then slots back in behind, but Jake Dennis will, of course, want the points. Even if he can't get ahead of Giovinazzi, he'll want to get ahead of Leclerc for 3rd place. So Rosenqvist perhaps allowed through, see what he could do about Giovinazzi. Couldn't do enough, gives the place back again, so Jake Dennis scores the greater number of points for third place as it now would become in the championship.
As a storyline, I think you're right. I think that's exactly what happened. You know, because Felix had a go initially, didn't he, on Giovinazzi, and, you know, for a couple of laps tried really, really hard and just wasn't going to be there, was it? And perhaps has decided that whatever he throws at him, he's not going to be able to. So now he goes into
team player mode,
support mode for Jake Dennis.
So Jake Dennis 2.7 seconds back, starting this last lap. Sorry, this 18th lap of the race. We're closing towards the end. There's a mechanical warning meatball flag being given to Rd11. He's got wing damage, hasn't he?
Well, I mentioned that earlier. I just thought, you know, the wing just looked a little bit unstable on Tvita's car, so perhaps I was right.
Got a shot, certainly, of it flapping a little. There's Felix Rosenqvist, this year's champion. The season not quite over for a number of them, because there is the Intercontinental Cup to come, otherwise known as the Macau Grand Prix, which is an event that Felix Rosenqvist won last year, and he will go there. Very much the man to beat, won't he? Giovinazzi leading by 2.8 seconds into the last 4 minutes of the race, and a flying lap is 92 seconds. Do the math.
And now, look, 2.8 over Jake Dennis is the margin, so Giovinazzi doing a very, very good job here. But as you say, Carlin have switched on the sweet spot, haven't they? As in comes Ryan Tvita.
Yes, you're right. We're looking at George Russell's Carlin car. There's Charles Leclerc ahead of Callum Ilott, ahead of Gustavo Menezes, but that is Ryan Tvita. And if you peer around all the Prema jackets, you will see, potentially, the damage to the wing. There it is. It's just the end plate, isn't it?
It's not the end plate.
OK, there is damage to the wing, but scrutineers called him in, but that's arguably harsh, that. You could discuss whether, having got this far, another 3 minutes of the race.
To be fair, look, it is I think, a little bit unstable. So,
is it? Yeah. Clearly he's gone into the back of somebody. There's a big bite out the front. So Ryan Tvita out of the race. He was running 17th when he crossed the timing line. But Antonio Giovinazzi then is on target for a 6th win of the season. Jake Dennis doing his best behind, and Jake quicker by 0.2 in the first sector. He's having a last go, but it's a bit of a forlorn hope, isn't it?
Yes, it's too late, isn't it?
Yeah. All he can hope for is that Giovinazzi makes a mistake, and they didn't come when Rosenqvist was behind. They're not going to come now, I fear. But Jake Dennis, as you said, pre-race, has had a much better season. Lessons learnt. He knows the tracks. He knows what to expect from a Formula 3 car, and he's gone to another top team. Whether Prema is better than Carlin is something to discuss over a beer, maybe, because they're both top teams. But certainly there's years and years and years of European tracks at Prema that maybe Carlin hasn't got quite so much of, having specialised in the British Championship with F3 for so long before coming into the Euro Series and then the FIA Championship when that was renamed. There is Felix Rosenqvist. He doesn't lack experience of Formula 3 either, does he?
No, that's for sure. Veteran almost. So Felix Rosenqvist running in P3 then. Jake Dennis P2. Antonio Giovinazzi there. The number 3 car with the Jagunya IAM livery running P1. Now, what's happened to the Seta Kamara George Russell little battle?
It's fizzled out a bit, hasn't it? Yeah. Kamara has extended the gap over Russell, who in turn is mindful that Marcus Pommer is behind. Just wonder whether Callum Ilott could get past Charles Leclerc before the end. Look, they're absolutely nose to tail at the Spitzkehrer.
Certainly having a go, isn't he?
Yeah, Ilott for Carlin, same team that Giovinazzi drives for. Might take a point away from the Van Amersfoort driver then. But Giovinazzi, we reckon, he's on target now to be the runner-up in the championship, come what may. Callum Ilott, though, who stormed his way from 32nd to 15th in the earlier race, out of the points, is running in 12th spot now, 11th in terms of point scorers. So can he find a way past Leclerc? There's a minute to go. The leader is about to start his last lap then as they work their way up over the timing line. So through now goes Giovinazzi, and the gap that he has got is 2.1 seconds over Jake Dennis. So it's come down a little, but there's not enough time, is there?
No. So Giovinazzi then, Dennis Rosenqvist, Gunther Sims, Jensen Stroll, Seta Kamara.
Then Russell Pommer to round out the top 10. So Felix Rosenqvist, the champion, illustrating that he can play the team game this weekend. And we have got Antonio Giovinazzi on his last lap, win number 6 beckons. That will put him equal on wins with Jake Dennis, but it's going to, and I'll go back to the abacus in a moment to confirm it, give him second place in the championship.
So Giovinazzi then on his way towards checkered flag. Jake Dennis P2, Felix Rosenqvist P3. Antonio Giovinazzi, who's had to restart the race twice from behind the safety car. He has, well, really commanded this race and really looked under pressure. And Felix Rosenqvist perhaps having the best opportunity at trying to get past, but was not able to do so, and then relinquished that overtake back to Jake Dennis, to Max Jake Dennis's points haul.
But this is the man who is going to be the runner-up in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Antonio Giovinazzi comes across the line to win for the 6th time this year. Antonio Giovinazzi and Carl the winners. Jake Dennis takes second, Felix Rosenqvist third, fourth goes the way of Max Günther. Another impressive showing, first weekend out for Prema ahead of Alex Sims, then Mikkel Jensen, Lance Stroll. The race one winner is 7th, 8th will go the way of Kamara, 9th to George Russell, Marcus Pommer is 10th, and with Alexander Sims not scoring points, 11th, and the final point in the championship goes the way of Charles Leclerc. Matt Rao has had a pit stop, a drive-through and an off on the last lap.
Yes, he was very, very slow from the corner of my eye down the start-finish straight, Matt Rao, so
he's a retirement then on the last lap of the race, but Antonio Giovinazzi provisionally is the runner-up in the championship, the winner of the 32nd round of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Goes offline to help tyre pickup, runs off the road, stands to the weight of the car by picking things up on the sticky tyres. And Antonio Giovinazzi with one of his better drives. I know we've seen races where he's had to work his way and do overtaking to grab positions, but there he had a lot of pressure thrown at him, and he had to think not only about his driving, but about what was going on in the championship and the point situation.
But you made the point to have showed the pace that he showed in this race. Why not earlier?
But he's had that kind of a season. He's just been inconsistent. I know Rosenqvist has had bad days, but sometimes the lack of points scored, like Silverstone, where he had a technical infringement in qualifying when the wing dropped and he was put to the back of the grid, you know, that wasn't really down to him. Other times Rosenqvist hasn't scored so well because, like Monza, there were 2 half-points races. Same at the Red Bull Ring in the 3rd race there. So he's sometimes Felix Rosenqvist been a victim of circumstance, whereas Giovinazzi sometimes, Portimao was an example, he really seemed to struggle there. He was a bit anonymous, wasn't he, at the bottom end of the top 10. So Jake Dennis takes second in the race, Felix Rosenqvist third. The Prema idea of perhaps taking him into the lead and take points off Giovinazzi that way did not pay out, but it's worth a punt, wasn't it? So there's one more race to go in the championship, and Antonio Giovinazzi doesn't have to think anymore about points necessarily, so he can now go for a race win when we get to the 3rd race of the weekend.
That race, of course, coming up tomorrow. So Giovinazzi then making his way back to the pit lane in Parc Fermé. The Giovinazzi, Dennis and Rosenqvist that we see up there on the podium. Alexander Sims then taking effectively P5, but not taking points because running in the guest category, which means everyone else effectively garners an additional place because of that, and points awarded as such. So Giovinazzi, Rosenqvist, Dennis, and there is the Max Günther car, Mikkel Jensen, and then Lance Stroll, who was victorious, of course, in the race earlier today.
Drivers arrive in Parc Fermé. Just to make the point about tomorrow's race, it's based on a driver's 2nd best lap time out of the 2nd qualifying session. So Antonio Giovinazzi, today's 2nd race winner, will start 2nd on the grid. Jake Dennis will be the man on pole. So Dennis, Giovinazzi, Rosenqvist will be 3rd on the grid. Max Günther will be 4th. Alex Albon 5th. George Russell 6th. Jensen, Pommer, Sims, Stroll would round out the top 10 on the grid for tomorrow's final race, barring any penalties that may crop up just to shuffle things around. Don't think we've got any brewing that we are aware of for those drivers. So a delighted Antonio Giovinazzi bags 2nd place in the championship. So Jake Dennis, who again has had sounds harsh saying it, 6 times a winner, but again inconsistent. Some days he's been good and other times he's struggled a little bit to get himself right up there for points, but on the whole, it's been a much better season for Jake. He will go into tomorrow fighting Charles Leclerc for 3rd place. The way that he's gone, actually, today, you'd put your money on him, I think. But
yes.
1 or 2 days, it's just not been for him, and so he's given away some points, but he's improved as a driver. Antonio Giovinazzi wins round 32 ahead of Jake Dennis and Felix Rosenqvist. Max Günther bags 4th ahead of the non-point scoring Alexander Sims. Then Mikkel Jensen ahead of Lance Stroll, Sergio Sette Camara with George Russell, Marcus Pommer rounding out the top 10. Charles Leclerc rounding out the scorers ahead of Callum Ilott, Gustavo Menezes, Alessio Lorandi, Algermani 15th, and further down the order, Julio Moreno rounds out the top 20, and at the foot of page 3, those that were in dramas, worse though for Nabil Jeffrey and Alex Albon, both of them with damaged cars and both out, in fact, early on, bringing 2 safety car periods into the race. Antonio Giovinazzi then is the race winner. The gap at the end had dropped down to 1.8 seconds between him and Jake Dennis, but the winning margin matters not. It's the win that counts, and Antonio Giovinazzi has done the hard yards in that race. Lance Stroll will be on the rookie podium. Just caught a glimpse of him being embraced by the Prema guys. That's a reminder of who will be heading to the podium. For 3rd place, it's Felix Rosenqvist, 12 times a winner this year and the champion. Jake Dennis gets 2nd, 6 times a winner this year, and now 6 times a race winner. Antonio Giovinazzi will be on the top step. And so Carlin, Prema across the teams. And there, Antonio Giovinazzi in the Jagonia I Am, the tasty chicken car of the Galal family. He is the man that will go to the top step of the podium and complete his year tomorrow in the confidence that he is the runner-up in the championship. The cars arrive in Parc Fermé, drivers made ready for the podium, and the barriers there put behind so that nobody else can get in to touch or tamper with the cars. The scrutineering checks will take place, but Antonio Giovinazzi, a very happy man, a relieved man perhaps, that he's at least the runner-up in the championship.
Yes. So some super slow-mos then of our race winner Antonio Giovinazzi then, who just a few weeks ago made his debut in a DTM car, of course, sitting in for Timo Scheider at Timo Scheider, of course, victorious in DTM earlier today here at this very circuit, but at Moscow it was that man that sat in the Timo Scheider Audi and drove it in a very creditable manner, it has to be said. So heading up to the podium now goes Antonio Giovinazzi.
So the winner of the penultimate round of the championship is Antonio Giovinazzi. Jake Dennis joins him on the podium for 2nd place, and then 3rd will go the way of this year's champion, Felix Rosenqvist, who makes his way now up to the 3rd step. Carlin is represented on the podium as well, and they will now be the national anthem for the winning driver for the Italian, Antonio Giovinazzi. And so, a noisy reception for Antonio Giovinazzi. And the confusion as to whether to put the hats back on all stems from the fact that the noise level rose on the grid as the next race is formed up. But Manfred Sandbichler from Hankook hands over the winner's trophy. And again, the Carlin engineers noisy down below in the pit lane. The trophy for the 2nd place driver, Jake Dennis, will be given after Martin Hunning from Ravenol. The oil company gives the team's trophy to Carlin. Carlin, a prodigiously busy team, running in just about every single seater category going. Jake Dennis receives his 2nd place trophy from a less raucous Prema Power team compared to Carlin for the race winner. And the Swede, Felix Rosenqvist, is the man who is going to get the 3rd place trophy, again from Martin Hunning from Ravenol. The drivers then, with their trophies, will get themselves together on the top step of the podium for photographs. And at the end of a long season, there is still one more round to go. And that will sort out who's going to be 3rd. Will it be Charles Leclerc or will it be Jake Dennis? And that is a battle that's going to be resolved tomorrow with the final race of this year's championship set to take centre stage tomorrow morning. The race will be underway at 10:45 local time. For now, though, the Henkel Trocken is sprayed by the drivers, and as it's the end of a long day, it's only fair, isn't it, that the engineers take one for the team. Enough. And so the winning drivers will make their way from the podium, but the celebrations well deserved at Carlin after a mighty effort by Antonio Giovinazzi, and for Carlin, Dallara and Volkswagen, the engine supplier, it is a win in the penultimate round of the championship. Antonio Giovinazzi there in slow motion, tips the bubbly down the back of the neck of anybody he can find on the podium. He may be frustrated not to be the champion. It looked as though at one point he was having a stronger season than Felix Rosenqvist, but being second against this level of opposition is certainly no disgrace. It's been another interesting race, and there's one more to come in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. We'll see you tomorrow morning. For now, from David Anderson and Dave Richardson, bye-bye.